What is going on, guys? Jim Surratt, Hammer Strength and Conditioning, coming at you today. We are here at Hammer Strength and Conditioning, located in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Come check us out. We're open Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Saturdays, 8 to noon. Saturdays are free, open gym. Anybody can come in and train. You don't have to be a member. Just come in, sign a waiver, have a good workout. Okay? So today, we're going to talk a little bit about conditioning, my least favorite thing to do as a powerlifter. But as a strength and conditioning coach, it's very important to be able to know how to program it, right? So, conditioning or energy system development is something that is very important for especially your tactical professionals, right? Or your sports performance athletes, right? So, also very important for general fitness enthusiasts or people looking to improve their health and fitness and wellness. There's a lot of different ways you can go about doing it, right? So, I'm a very big proponent of, let me back up. I'm not a fan of the term functional training, right? I think all training is functional, right? If you're lifting weights and getting stronger, you're functional. If you're out running, you're getting more functional. If you're squatting, deadlifting, benching, putting things overhead, carrying stuff, that's all functional work, right? Whether it's functional in terms of how it relates to your profession or how it relates to your life is dependent upon the situation, the context. But I'm a firm believer that every sort of training modality is in its own way somewhat functional, right? But when it comes to conditioning, I'm a big proponent of making sure that we do things that are relatively low impact, but have a high return on investment. So what I mean by that is that especially within the tactical realm, you'll see a lot of people just go out and pound the pavement, 3, 5, 7, up to 12 miles, whether it's running or rucking or whatever it may be. You'll see people who just go out and run, right? There's nothing wrong with running inherently, but for some people it's very impactful, it's very aggravating, it's very intense sort of training modality. And if you're healthy enough to run, right, it's a fantastic way to get in shape. If you're not healthy enough to run, whether it's like from a cardiovascular perspective or a joint, like a lower extremity joint issue or a low back issue from rucking, might not be your best bet, right? So how do we navigate around potential issues, injuries, and limitations and still execute a solid conditioning plan, right? So that's what we're gonna talk about today. So behind me, hopefully you can see all this in the sun. Behind me, I have a few different conditioning tools, okay? So we'll start from right to left, or now left to right. We'll start from this end. So first and foremost, we have the sled. Okay, so this is a push-pull sled from Rep Fitness. It's got the high handles or the posts, and it's got the low handles here, okay? So you can push it from either position, from either the back or the front, or you can hook up carabiners or straps to it and you can tow it, okay? I'm a huge fan of watching other people do sled conditioning. I'm not a fan of doing sled conditioning myself, but I'm not a fan of doing conditioning in general, so it doesn't really matter. But the sled is a super effective and very efficient way of creating energy system development adaptations, right? There's a lot of different ways you can execute a sled push-pull. You can do, so I think this sled weighs about, let's call it about 60 pounds unloaded. So you can do sled sprints where you're pushing as fast as you can, trying to cover as much ground as possible in as little time as possible. Or you can do it for intervals, whatever you want to do. So you leave it unloaded, you can load it moderately or lightly, or you can load it heavy, right? And do like strength pushes, essentially, which are still conditioning to a degree, but they still work on your strength. The really good thing about a sled is that it's almost entirely concentric, meaning there's no like eccentric loading phase. So eccentrics, which is where you're lowering the weight, so like if you're squatting, that's as you're coming down, eccentrics tend to have a more intense impact on delayed onset muscle soreness, or creating that delayed onset muscle soreness, the trauma and the fatigue in the muscles that causes that pain later down the road. Concentric lifting, which is where you're pushing the weight, well, we're moving the weight upwards, right? You're never really pushing, it's not safer necessarily, but it's less intense, right? Because you are pushing through not the agonist? Yeah, the agonist's full range of motion, Okay, so you're not lowering the weight, you're not controlling the weight into an eccentric, but you're pressing through into a concentric, right? So it's not a safer, but it's a more, it's a friendlier version of loading, essentially. And that's what the sled is. The sled is almost entirely concentric. There is some eccentric loading as you just go through your range of motion, as you go through your gait cycle. But as far as like an actual loaded pattern, where the eccentric, the antagonist, the antagonist muscle is being loaded eccentrically, pretty minimal. So again, sprints, marches, pushes, all of which can be adjusted as far as intensity. Elite FTS makes a sled they call the Prowler, and they refer to what happens after you use the Prowler as the Prowler Flu, which is a very on point moniker because sleds don't seem like much, but if you do them correctly, whether you're doing them for intervals. So when I say intervals, I mean like 10 rounds of either yardage or time, right? So you can go for like, hey, let's say we do 10 rounds of 10 yards down and back, or we do 10 rounds of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off type stuff. And you can adjust that as you see fit based on the demands of your population, what you're trying to execute. But sleds don't seem like much up front, but being in that bent over, more parallel to the floor position is really taxing, and it can really get on you very quickly. So again, I haven't loaded this one, like loaded this one yet. I think we've put 45s on it. We just have some pretty rough concrete out here. This one has plastic skis or plastic like slides on the bottom of the skis. So it pushes a little bit easier than it used to, but it's still not ideal. So anybody who has trained with me here who's watching this, I apologize for it, but get used to it. Yeah, so super effective training method. Very simple, brutal, but excellent nonetheless. All right, now we'll move on to the drag sled. Okay, so this was popularized by Westside Barbell. This is actually a Westside Barbell sled. I think it weighs about 25, 30 pounds unloaded. It's just one solid piece of steel that's been welded or maybe it's just, I don't know. But anyway, it's just one solid piece of construction. It's got a post, you can put weight on it. This is super effective for zone 1, zone 2 type cardio, right? Warm-ups, recovery training, and cool downs. So pretty simple, throw the weight on the sled, strap the belt around your waist, walk, right? That's the gist of the drag sled. Drag sleds, at least this design, don't really lend themselves very well to sprinting. So I use these, like I had clients yesterday who did sleds and drag chains as just a recovery modality, right? We had a pretty hard conditioning session on Thursday. So I said, hey, let's back it off a little bit. We'll just do like 10 minutes of basic sled drag as a recovery modality or recovery session for conditioning. It's really important, like with the sleds, you can go forward, you can go backward, you can go side to side. It just depends on what you want to do, right? So like if we're walking forward, there's a certain gait cycle that you want. If we're pushing backwards, there's a certain gait cycle you want. If you're going sideways, you can either shuffle or you can cross over. There's a lot of different things you can do, right? The drag sled is less systemically brutal than the push-pull sled is. Just by virtue of, I mean, it's still effective, don't get me wrong, right? It's not an easy thing. It can become very difficult very quickly. But the push-pull sled is more acute, right? So you use the push-pull sled for, like, again, interval training, as compared to the drag sled, which you do for like time or total distance or total yardage, right? So this is less systemic, in my opinion, so it's gonna hit your cardiovascular system less aggressively, but it's gonna create more local muscular endurance, like through the posterior chain, through the anterior chain, depending on what you're doing, right? I think this is a very effective training method. It's very simple, it's very basic, but there's a lot of different ways you can use it, and it's super effective, okay? Next, we have sandbags. So here at Hammer Strength, we have 25s, 50, we have a 25, a 50, 100, 150, and a 200-pound sandbag. Okay, so far only the 25 through the 100 have gotten use. So if anybody's out there watching this, and you're in the area and you want to come by and give that 200 a run, by all means go for it. Sandbags are super great because they create, in my opinion, like total body strength and total body conditioning, right? The sandbags I have here, the 25er has multiple handles on it because it's it's a longitudinal one. It's like a torpedo. The heavier ones, the 50 through the 200, have either a top strap and side handles. That's all they have. So it's very awkward. Anybody who's lifted a heavy sandbag before knows that sandbag training is very awkward, right? Because it's very difficult to grab onto and manipulate and hold, right? But it's great for building grip strength. It's great for building arm strength, upper back strength, lower back strength. Basically, again, total body fitness, health, maybe not health, but total body GPP, right? So sandbags are a very dynamic tool that you can use. Like I use them with my clients for carries, like we'll Zercher it or we'll bear hug it, walk for distance or walk for time. I'm a huge fan of doing things for time as compared to just like distance. Because especially in relation to the tactical world, you don't have set distances that you're trying to cover, right? You're just doing an exertion for X amount of time, right? So if you're a police officer and you are pursuing a suspect, you can't tell that suspect, hey, I'm really good at running 20 yards, so please don't run any more than that, right? Or if you are a military professional, a tactical operator, and you're out for a ruck, or you're covering or you're doing an infill or an exfil, you can't say like, hey, Sarge, like I can only go a mile at a time, right? So you have to be able to go for distance and be able to just continue to put out effort, to continue to exert effort, right? So huge fan of doing things for time. But again, sandbags, very efficient, very effective at total body strength, total body conditioning. Carrying them on your chest is a brutal way of getting in shape because it compresses your chest, it compresses your lungs, it doesn't allow for maximum expansion and inhalation. It's constantly putting pressure on your chest and on your lungs so you don't get to breathe in as deeply as you might normally, so it limits your oxygen uptake, intake and uptake. So one of my favorite things to do here is I'll set up a barbell at about, I don't know, belly button height, depending on the person. And we'll just do bag over bar, bag over bar, bag over bar. We'll go for like 5-minute rounds, 10-minute rounds, depending on what we want to do. We can go 50s, 100s. One of my clients, he did a 10-minute round with the 100 the other day, and he had to go over the bar with the bag and then under the bar with his body, reset, and just repeat for 10 minutes. It was a crusher. He killed it. So again, super effective training method. Highly recommend sandbags. The sandbags themselves are a little bit expensive sometimes, but the sand that you put in it is super cheap. It's just a huge pain in the ass, right? There's no good way to design a sandbag because it's just like it's a bag inside of a case or inside of a shell, right? So the sandbag itself is inside the shell and it's all sewn together. And normally they have like a funnel, like a soft funnel that runs into the bag, but there's no good way of doing it. It's just a pain in the ass no matter which way you shake it out. And that's the worst part about doing about getting sandbags as a facility or as an owner or as a coach. Providing sandbags, filling them up is the worst fucking part. Watching people do them is fantastic. So highly recommend sandbags. Finally, we'll talk about the wheelbarrow here. So hopefully you can see this. This is from Titan. It's about, I don't know, maybe 8 feet long. It weighs 80 pounds unloaded, and it can handle up to 500 pounds total weight or external weight. So you can have I think up to 600 pounds almost total weight. This is a phenomenal tool, right? I've never tried wheelbarrows from a conditioning perspective before I opened up Hammer Strength and Conditioning. I'd always been interested in them, but had never been in a situation where either I could afford one, had the space for it, or was at a gym that had one. But super effective, very simple, very basic, right? I would say 99% of us have wheeled a wheelbarrow at least one point in our life, right? Same thing applies here. You pick it up, stabilize it, squeeze the handles, and you walk with it, right? I like doing these again for distance or for time. Again, mostly for time. But phenomenal for building grip strength, upper back, trap development, core stability, because especially as it starts getting heavy, you're gonna wanna start seesawing back and forth. So you as the operator, as the system, right, have to stay stable. You can push these forward or you can turn around and walk this way with the weight behind you. Pushing the weight forward is more taxing than pulling the weight. But I think it's important with all things training, to have variety, novelty, and variation in what you do to make sure that there's no weak points, right? Because Louis Simmons said weak things break, right? And you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if there's something in your chain, metaphorically or literally, that is weaker than the rest of the links, that's where it's gonna break and that's what's gonna hurt you, right? So leave no stone unturned, attack all angles, all that kind of stuff. We did this yesterday with my power lifters. So again, 80 pounds with the sled. We had a 45 and a 25, so we had 70, so 150 pounds. Pretty simple, right? Pretty basic. As we get deeper into our conditioning, which I think is important for powerlifters as well, at least from a recovery perspective and a fitness perspective, we'll go heavier. But it was the first time that we as a crew had done the wheelbarrow, so we wanted to start off easy and work our way into it. The Titan brand, I love Titan stuff. I think they've come a long way with the quality of their equipment, and they're super affordable. So if you are looking to get in, and this is not a paid advertisement by any means, but if you're looking to get into some strength equipment, Titan is a great place to start. Elite FTS makes fantastic gear, or fantastic equipment. It's just a little more expensive, but it's super well built, super heavy duty. But if you're in an economy market like myself, if you're balling on a budget, emphasis on the budget, not so much the balling, Titan's a great place to start. So again, smooth operations, easy construction. It all comes disassembly. You just got to put it together, and it's easy to go. I don't know if you can see them back here. I'm not going to move them because they weigh about 90 pounds each. But there's farmer's walk handles. Again, another super effective total body conditioning tool. Really taxes your grip, your upper back, your core, your balance, and your stability. Right. Basically, anytime you move under load, right? Like under some external load, whether it's on your shoulders, so it's like a load carriage, or like an axial like chassis carriage, that's what I'm looking for, is chassis, or like an external like hold type carriage. Anytime you move under load, anytime you have weighted locomotion, let's be fancy with it. Anytime you have weighted locomotion, you're gonna get stability, balance, coordination, and then total systemic training, right? So I'm a huge fan, again, to sort of recap, I'm a huge fan of like functional conditioning. I love also like off foot conditioning, so you can't see it, I don't think, but I have like an Aerosol bike or an Airdyne bike that I'll use as well. I think it's really important that, as I said in the beginning, that operators or tactical professionals or people who just want to get in shape, so it really applies to everybody, have different opportunities to try different things and find what works best for them as far as conditioning. And also to continue to push their conditioning threshold without aggravating their joints, right? So like for us as powerlifters, like, you know, one of my guys is over 300 pounds, right? He's a big dude, he's strong, but like running, not in the cards for him, right? I can run, I choose not to because I hate it, right? So I would rather do some type of conditioning that improves my cardiovascular fitness, but limits or mitigates the likelihood of incurring like a soft tissue or a joint-based injury or aggravation that is going to take away from my training as a power lifter, right? So it really comes down to, just like anything in coaching and strength and conditioning, it comes down to, it depends, right? And finding what works best for the population and for the goals that you're trying to achieve. So, off foot conditioning, rowing, Stairmaster, elliptical, air bike, or assault bike, whatever you want to call it, swimming even, anything that doesn't load the joints as aggressively, super effective and huge fan of. Obviously, there is a time where you do have to go run, like if you're going to a selection, or if you're in the Army and you have to do an AFT, or if you are a law enforcement first responder and you have to execute some sort of PT test on a regular basis, like you're gonna have to run, right? But we can modify and modulate your training so that you don't spend all your time running and getting beat up, but we improve your cardiovascular fitness, and then we can improve your running skill as necessary, right? So I think that's it for today. I just wanted to quick talk about different conditioning aspects or different conditioning modalities. Feel free to check us out on Instagram at HammerS&C. Website is www.hammersandc.com. Feel free to email me at hammersnc@gmail.com. Again, Saturdays are open gym, 8 to noon. We are located at 6677 East Little Michigan Road, number 110, Sierra Vista, Arizona, 85635. If you are in the area, or if you're swinging through the area, or if you're not and you want to come check it out, shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll get back to you, okay? Thanks for checking in. Please like, comment, subscribe, share all that kind of stuff. And as always, don't waste the pain.